the way we work and the skills needed in a workspace and in life are changing. As AI
Mhm.
takes on a lot of the more rote tasks, what does that mean for us, not only in work, but in life, in leisure, in community, in relationships? And one of the big skills that's jumping to the surface is creativity. Strategic thinking, even, requires that we build this creative muscle.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Britton, and welcome to the Coaching Money Podcast. I've been on a mission for the last 20 years to expand the coaching conversation to many. Along with my co-host, Evana Valle, we're going to be exploring coaching as it relates to conversations, connection, and change in both personal and professional settings. Coaching Money is about creating empowering and thought-provoking spaces for conversation which strengthen relationships and enhance results. Throughout the Coaching Money podcast, we'll share tools, practices, and approaches to support you in your conversations, one dialogue at a time.
So welcome back, Evana, and welcome back to our listeners. We're excited to be with you for another Coaching Money podcast. My name's Jennifer Britton. I'm here with Evana Valle, and we are diving into this great topic today of the what, the why, and the how of creative experiential tools to activate awareness, activate new perspectives and insights. What are you looking forward to in this conversation?
Yeah, Jen, this is amazing because this topic for me has really transformed, but also, what's the word I want to say? Like catapulted my coaching in the many conversation, but also I'm using more tools, experiential tools in the one-on-one conversation, virtually, in person. And so I'm just really excited to be sharing some of this and what is possible, right? Like we talk about this in the coaching world, like what is possible? And that's our stand as coaches. But this experiential tools are one of those things that really expand that possibility, both for you and me as a coach, but also for our participants and our clients. So that's what I'm excited to talk about.
Love it. And some of you might say, but wait, didn't you recently do an episode on experiential? And we did. We did episode 19, I want to say.
19.
19 was the experiential process, how we create the learning process. Today is really, what are the tools? How do you use dice? How do you use cards? How do you use, we have the conversation sparker charms to really help people in times of change, times of complexity, times where it's sort of like, what is happening? And I think this is where we've got to get beyond just the power of a question. Not that a question isn't powerful, but for some issues, like the radical change that we're seeing, we can have and use these other approaches to activate new insights in very creative ways where people are able to connect new dots and go, aha, I would have never thought about that. So, Evana, why don't you start us off by talking about some of the experiences we've had in our programming, in the writing sprints? Talk a little bit about what this can look like and sound like, just so that we can create the expanse for our listeners today.
Yeah, sure. So what's brilliant about these tools and using these tools, and I've actually experienced it firsthand, both as a recipient in our writing sprints and with my own clients, they're actually tools I say that really kind of help that unstuck. Like oftentimes even writers block the ideas that we have. And so these tools are valuable for helping people kind of shift perspectives and kind of see things differently. And so let me give you a couple of examples. So first, I'll give you the example of my own practicality as a recipient using the dice that you've recently launched in the marketplace. So we were experimenting with the dice since November, even earlier, actually. You and I have been experimenting with it. And so for me, as a person that I don't identify myself as a writer, and I'm committed to writing and putting my life's work pen and paper, these dice have actually been able to really kind of anchor me. They've been able to ground me based on what I'm coming into the conversation and what I'm really wanting to explore. They've also helped me to presence a possibility of, like one of my die is, release the valve is one of the die that, I really connect to. And it's because I put so much pressure on myself. I put so much pressure on the process. And so the universe keeps inviting this die to me to remind me just to take the pressure off yourself, release that valve, and see what's possible when you put oxygen into it. So the beautiful thing with all these tools is they actually are, as coaches, they're metaphors, and they're metaphors and doorways into different ways of looking at a situation.
And I think if we use that spotlight of the doorway, it really is a new doorway that, well, you might have come to that awareness on your own. In the time available, it creates the doorway. And I think it's interesting, even before you said, your dice is the release valve. That's what I was thinking. And whenever it comes up, you're like activated, you get excited. It's like, woo! And so we may have mentioned this in the other episode, but the Reconnecting Workspaces dice, which you can find over at conversationsparker.com, the tagline is sparking conversation in a world of change. And we did a recent hot topic call in our community calls, which people can also find on our YouTube channel at Effective Group Coach. We talked a little bit about this 4-part activation model of we want to pause, we want to focus, we want to activate or create and then activate. And I've been using this a lot in our Amplify Mastermind program, actually. So giving people, we do a start of the week planning sprint and an end of the week review. And it's interesting. The last month or so, I've been bringing in questions that help people get into those 4 areas. And I'm finding that it is connecting the dots. So I'm going to just roll the dice right now, just to sort of illustrate. And for those who are just listening, maybe you head on over to YouTube, because I think this is sort of fun to look at. So we've got the first one. And of course, just to give a verbal description, it is the bullseye. So the bullseye, which think about what that might mean for you. When you think about the bullseye, is that focus? In this instance, it's number 8, goals. So we've got the bullseye. We also have the next one, which is strengths. Strengths. So how can you activate your strengths to really crush your goals? That would be like a 2021 language, right? I would say, how do you activate your strengths to really get the bullseye going, get it in there? And our next one, 2 people given the high five. What do you think that is?
Celebrate.
Yeah.
Collaboration.
Yeah. What were you going to say? High five or celebration?
I was going to say celebration. Yeah.
So you could definitely see it as celebration, right? Or you could see it as peer-to-peer. You could also see it as let's activate more, but it's this notion of let's give a high five. So we've got goals, we've got strengths, and we've got the high five. So for each of us, that's going to be a different story, right? But what I might take from this is to really crush my goals. Yes, I've got to use strengths, but I need to amplify my strengths with more collaboration, more brainstorming. We had a wicked problem here. We did some brainstorming together, new ideas get activated. Yeah. So would I have had that same insight by myself? Possibly. But this is yet another doorway. It's another creative opportunity. And what I'm finding people really like, so each dice set comes with the icons. People might be like, what does that really mean? Just like we've done with this collaboration, right? What is it? Well, it could be the collaborate. It could also be peer-to-peer. And how are you leaning into your peers to help you through challenges? So big or small, this is another way to help people, like you said, activate the metaphors. But the beauty of 3 dice is that it really gives us that bigger perspective to start jumping around with our thinking and our awareness, and therefore our action.
Yeah. Yeah. Jen, you know what? As you say that, and as I even think about these 3 that happen to be the 3 die of the day of the conversation, as much as it's called reconnecting workspaces, these die can be used in so many different applications. Yeah. Yes. I'm even thinking with the women that I work with in terms of transition and really helping them connect to where they're stuck and where they want to go. This could be just using these die. We could have a conversation in a whole hour conversation around it. So it doesn't necessarily, as much as the branding will say, is reconnecting workspaces. I
Mhm.
want to invite people to think about, consider these tools in the way that actually applies to the work that you do, because
Yes.
I think there's value. And again, as we know, we got to meet our people where they are.
Yeah.
And so how can you invite them into the conversation to be able to
Completely.
activate it is in different contexts.
And thanks for that. It was interesting in even naming the die. Do we go to reconnecting workspaces? Ultimately, they fall under the Conversation Sparker brand, right? And I think that is
Yes.
probably where we want to really put the focus is this is to spark conversations, conversations for action, most importantly, conversations for insight, because in challenging, complex issues we are facing in the world all over today, we need to make sure that we are really taking that pause and connecting the dots. So these are the sparks. And with it too, you'll want to see for your folks, what do they like? What do they like touching? Do they like rolling the dice? I think there's something very fun about the dice. Do they like the card deck, right? So in our 25 for 25, which are virtual co-working sprints that have been running for the first quarter of the year, I've been bringing these in, and our card recently, this was last week, I just randomly pulled one of the monthly check-in cards. So what I love about this is there's questions here. What's working and what's not? Do I always bring that in to a conversation? Sometimes, but not always. What relationships are important to focus on? What metrics do you want to move? So some people love the cards and the randomness of just being able to like pick a card or say, hey, if you're on the phone, pick something in the middle or pick the top two. So these are yet another way to just get people thinking. And this deck, of course, also matches the dice. So all of this links into the 90-day guide for success, because what I do find is coaches are sometimes uncertain. I won't say uncomfortable, but uncertain. Oh my goodness, the dice that came up is delegation. What can we explore? Well, you could open the book over my shoulder, the 90-day guide for success. You could open it up to the delegation day, pick a quote, share the quote with your client. You could invite the client to undertake the field work. So each of the days also has a few points of field work, as well as some description around delegation. So maybe the leader, it's a new leader, and they're trying to crush, how do I become better at delegating? We look at the 5 W's and an H. What, why, where, when, how do we delegate? And so all of a sudden, in about 5 minutes, boom, it's on the table.
Yeah. I'm thinking, Jen, I was working with one of my clients last week, and this particular client is really about developing her English skills and her expression in English. But what came up, although it wasn't necessarily delegation, was the conversation of boundaries with her family, with her children.
Boundaries. Yeah.
Right. And so
Totally.
how does that show up? And so again, it's really that opportunity to explore, what is delegation or what are boundaries?
What are boundaries?
Yeah.
What are
Like, I mean,
boundaries?
as coaches,
Yeah.
those powerful questions, these things become intuitive to us. And
Yeah.
so these tools are actually tools to support the conversation, but also, like, I kind of see the metaphor like it's a toolbox, right? And we're going to touch on the activate your superpowers. So my
Yes.
range as a coach has, with the creative tools, has really developed. And so to me, it's maybe this is really foreign to you, and it's okay. I've been there, done that, but it's always thinking, what is going to be in service of that expanded conversation? I actually notice that my conversations are going deeper. My conversations are more expanded because these tools kind of help me take some of the quote unquote pressure off myself. And now I go into sessions and I get told, where's the writing prompts? A lot of my clients really like the cards because they want
They
a
like
prompt.
the cards.
They,
Yeah.
they like the cards with a prompt. We don't even necessarily do journaling per se, but it's a conversation. Sometimes I have them face up so they see them in the English language conversation to have that impromptu. I keep them face down and I tell them how many pick and what to do. So it actually brings some excitement, some joy, some, something different, right? And
Different.
we can always anchor it in the topic of their choice or in the
Yes.
topic of the session.
And I love that you bring us, I don't have them physically here with me, but the square journaling Sparker cards. And those came out in 2019, physically, just about 4 months before the pandemic started. And that, like, sort of year end, I was having a lot of fun with teams, with groups in person and virtually, like engaging with them. And when the pandemic started, they went to a JPEG format, right? People can like get a JPEG digital form. So we've also been experimenting on where do you get the cards? So some of our card decks are available in a JPEG. People can insert those images into their own IP. They're branded and you can use them. You buy the license to them. Other ones like the 90-day guide though are on Deckable. And I'm just about to upgrade my phone. And so my phone is totally full and I can no longer even go to my little journal in Deckable because Deckable has an internal journal built in. And so last summer, what I was doing is every day I was picking a card, not a physical card, but a card on my phone. You can do a random draw in Deckable. And so it comes up, it shuffles, like you actually see the computer shuffling it, and then you hit stop and it will pull cards. And then there's a journaling function. So you can actually journal in it. And it was quite interesting last summer to see the journal entries. And for me, that was really important because it was in the last couple of weeks of my dad's life. And in that whole journey where everything was very augmented, right? When someone close to you dies, everything gets heightened, I think, or at least my experience was that things were really heightened. But to have the journal with me was different than having to physically carry a journal because I was moving between two locations. And that's also a piece of this is like, how do people take a little piece of the conversation? And so are you building in that structure? Are people getting a journal? Are you using Post-it notes? Is it enough for people just to have a sketch of the element? And I will say one of my mentors, I was in a business retreat this last weekend, and one of my mentors every year sends out a little box. And she has a notion of like, you build your business one duck at a time. So I can look back over the last 5 years and see all my different ducks. I think one's in the cupboard behind me. But the duck that I got this year, very interesting. It's the dragon heart duck, which I think really actually speaks a lot to who I am. I'm very ferocious. Like I will, in times of change, I will be leading the charge. I am not fearful. It is, this is where my strength of bravery and courage comes out. But there's also a heart. And some people don't see the heart in me. But I think about the dragon heart duck now that sits on my desk upstairs. And it's also got wings up, which if you've been following current moments here in Canada, we're using a frame called elbows up, which is elbows. And that is to really say, you know what, elbows up, stay away. I don't want to fight, but this is my protection. And it was just so interesting to see on Friday that I open up this box and there is Dragonheart. So again, like this is not going to work. Every tool for every client is not going to work, but it creates something memorable and different that is going to help things stand out in the world of change and disruption. And to the world of change and disruption, when I even have to say in the last few days, when news comes out, you sort of look at how do I want to show up? I want to show up with more dragon heart, right? Not just the dragon, but also the heart, because the two pieces are really important together. So,
yeah. Jenna, I have a question for you. And I think this, because I'm hearing it, and I think it's probably the elephant in the room, we'll say, and I would love to get your thoughts on this, which is, whether it be in our programs, group coaching essentials, sometimes even practicum. I'm not sure if you're hearing it, but I am hearing the comments. Oh, but my people, like they wouldn't do well with this. They wouldn't do well with charms. They wouldn't do. There's probably listeners who are thinking about that. Like, this all sounds really good, but my people, no. How would I dare bring them a charm? Yeah, right. Like for the doctors, the lawyers, that type of thing.
Well, I was working with doctors.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was working with doctors last week, right? We're taking some doctors through the group coaching essentials program, and they love this. They really, really love this. So again, I think there's a couple of layers to this. Number one, how are you introducing this? I learned this notion years before I officially became a coach. And one of my bosses had called me up and said, Jen, we need you to come fly halfway around the world and lead a 200-person retreat with a set of consultants. And so I arrived, and I was the last person to the party, as it sort of said, and they'd be like, guess what? You're going to do the intro. You're going to kick off this full day 200-person event. And I was like, well, who's coming? And it's like, well, it's all the senior leaders of XYZ organization. The next morning, people show up in three-piece suits. Are they ready to do the lifeboats exercise that I've got prepared, which is getting people to mingle and to find people who are similar? Well, within 10, 15 minutes, those ties came down, the jackets came off, the vests started opening up, because really, I think at the end of the day, part of it is about getting people to their core and getting them to the connect with self and connect with others. So, if you're coming across as uncomfortable, people are going to feel that. They're going to sense that, right? It's like dogs. Dogs sense everything. Groups
Yes.
sense everything. So you need to be comfortable and confident as a coach, which means you need to try these things out yourself. If you are having resistance, then I think the way you show it and bring it is going to have and activate some resistance as well. So there may be some learning, and this is where supervision comes in, to look at how are you expanding your range? How are you expanding your toolkit so that you can be getting into this arena of creativity, as we shared and in an episode that is, I don't think, yet released, but we are going to have an episode coming up very soon about some of the core skills which are needed by 2030, whether it's AI, whether it's changes due to economics. The way we work and the skills needed in a workspace and in life are changing. As AI takes on a lot of the more rote tasks, what does that mean for us? Not only in work, but in life, in leisure, in community, in relationships. And one of the big skills that's jumping to the surface is creativity. Strategic thinking even requires that we build this creative muscle. The ability to see patterns, the ability to step back and look at how things connect are an essential skill in terms of uncertainty, managing and navigating uncertainty. And so creative tools like this, whether it's metaphor, whether it's a physical product, allows us to start building that muscle. Because like the strengths muscle, if we're not using our creative muscles, they will weaken. If we're not using strategic thinking, that will weaken. If we're not thinking critically, which has a systems element, that whole strategic layer, the muscle will weaken, right? What isn't used, we lose. And so I think for a lot of reasons, these are tools. I dare not say the word empowerment, but I would say these are tools that activate the best for our clients, that allow them to really dig a little bit deeper and differently in their work. So I hope that inspires people. Like, start with something, whether it's visual prompts, whether it's the journaling cards, whether you want to get into the charms. People will find different elements. And I would even say with the charms, I've done these with entire hospital teams, the people who run the MRI, to the person who's in the back end of the hospital, to the nurses, right? Like, what do you need to do to get on your bike today? Where might your bike take you? Right? These are all things that just might not even be in your consciousness yet. I don't know. Let's use that bike charm. What comes up for you when you think about biking?
For me is joy, the joy that comes with biking. So where can I bring more joy in this task, this goal that I'm stuck in? That's what I'm thinking about right now. You're right. I'm trying to move something through the goalpost, right? I'm trying to move a product out, and I need to bring more joy of what's possible for myself through this, but also what's possible in actually putting it to market. So that's what's coming to my mind. And I want to just, if I may, Jen, because what does it mean to you? And then I want to circle back and just kind of loop the circle with what you were just saying.
Yeah, I'll be really fast. I think, when I think about bikes, I think about the 4 years that I biked all over Montreal when I was a university student doing my undergrad. my bike was my car, right? I didn't have a car, and I'd get on my bike even in the middle of winter at 4:30 in the morning to head to the pool. I was one of the lifeguards that opened up the pool every, I don't know, let's call it a Tuesday morning, and I'd work for about 3-4 hours, and then I'd go to class. That's how I got out of university with no debt. I worked and worked and worked. But that bike was everything, and it was like
Mm.
it was just like I just remembered riding down these beautiful city streets in the dark, and I was the only person on the road, really, like, I had a city to myself, and if you've ever been to Montreal, you know that Montrealers love to stay up late and get up late. So, 4 o'clock in the morning, unlike some cities which are starting to wake up, Montreal is, like, sound asleep, and
Yeah.
it was really just a very peaceful time. So I think bringing some of that peace into my work right now is really important in all the complexity and like, it's important to go back to the basics. There still is simplicity. If we walk outside our door, the world is still the same.
Mhm.
The natural world is still the same. So there's a reminder of that for me right now. So let's go back to what got activated for you. Let's head back to what you were thinking about.
Yeah. So for me, as you were sharing, it just kind of brought me back to the core competencies, like metaphor, using these
Mhm.
tools is an extension of the competencies, but also something that you said I want to reinforce, which is start small, start with something that you, as in the listener, the coach, feels like, is safe, right? Like this is about actually growing your growth edge, not actually jumping off the deep end. And so,
Yes.
whatever that looks like for you, and start small. Like I know I like for the perfectionists, for the ones who don't want to have that like situation, start with one-on-one clients. Like just take baby steps and experiment with it. Even get feedback, right? Like we talk about
Mhm.
this. This is the best practice. Try something. So don't bring it into a room of doctors if you don't feel that space is quite yours to take yet. But take those steps and experiment with them, even for yourself, with your family. See what gets activated with your family but I think it's a great resource. It's a great tool. And as the branding says, it's a conversation sparker. And trust
Mhm.
me, because I see it in so many different ways in so many different realms, it does. It activates people. It deepens awareness. It gets people moving in ways that oftentimes weren't possible in just a traditional conversation.
Yeah. And if I may, I think it's so important that this year we're doing the whole annual membership. So
Yeah.
every quarter, I'm going to be diving into a different product of the Conversation Sparker suite, starting with the dice in the next couple of months. So people who join it's an annual membership, you'll get a quarterly box, whether it's physical or digital, and you will get a product one month. The next month we'll then have a master class on 90 ways in 90 days. I won't go into 90-ish topics, but we're going to go look at 7 ways to work with the dice set. And then there's a half-day workshop in month 3. So we just did our coaching and change, creative and experiential tools to make it stick. I know you were there, Evana. What did you like about that half-day program?
Oh, wow. What I really appreciated was connecting with more coach like peers and also understanding how that those tools, experiences can actually contribute to learning and sustaining the learning in the long run.
Yeah.
Like that learning principle of memory retention and memorability. How do we do that both from an experience standpoint, but how do we connect that to deeper learning to attain goals? It was
And
wild.
And I love it. And again, like every quarter is going to have a different focus. This last quarter was really about memorability because, as many people know, learning doesn't stick unless it's reinforced. This is why I came to coaching more than 20 years
Yeah.
ago, was because you can have a great conversation, but is it anchored? So we really looked in the Q1 2025 at that. Next quarter, it's going to be different, right? Because there's so many layers to using these tools. So if you want more information on this, check out the Experiential Roadshow at conversationsparker.com. All of these tools are under that conversationsparker.com logo website, even if it's reconnecting workspaces. So I'm also bridging because my own writing and my own body of work is so extensive, the Reconnecting Workspaces dice are linked in to the 90 different areas that we focus on in leadership with the 90-day guide. That's why this is called Reconnecting Workspaces, but it is sparking conversation in a world of change. And really, whether you're working with business owners or students, these are tools that are valuable to everyone. So we hope you've enjoyed the sort of the what, the why, the how, got a few ideas. Join us for some of our upcoming community calls. We really had a great hot topics call. We're bringing those back. So they typically happen on Tuesdays, 12 noon, a couple times a month. So you'll definitely want to check out groupcoachingessentials.ca, or better yet, head on over to our newsletter. I'll put a newsletter link, I think, in the show notes. Don't think that's there already. But that is another way to keep abreast of all the things that are on the go, because our clients need us now more than ever. I feel like for the last 5 years, and this is the week of the 5-year anniversary of the pandemic, I just feel like I'm constantly saying it, but who else is holding the space for the conversations that need to happen, want to happen in the world? So we hope that you're leaving this episode with a little bit more zest, maybe some twinkle in your eye to experiment. And like an experiment says, you never know. You just never know. And it's like a great question. You never know where a great question is going to take your clients. You never know where one of these fun approaches is going to activate people. So with that, Evana, final comments. Anything you want to say as we go to wrap up?
I just invite our listeners just to, experiment and stretch yourself. And you likely already have tools that you're using, but even the tools that you have, what can you do differently? What can you experiment? Maybe it's with a different group of people, maybe it's around the kitchen table, but I encourage you to bring that creativity, as the World Economic Forum, shared as is a valuable skill, and look to see what else you can do. And check out the website. There's so many great resources. And I want to share this. What I really appreciate about the products that you sell, we sell at Potentials, realize it's not just a product. There's often a support and assistance on different ways you can use each of the products. So that way it already supports you in getting started with these tools. And it's really important. And I really appreciate that whenever I get my newest gadget from you. So I wanted just to share that.
And really, that's the heart of the Experiential Roadshow, is it's amping that up. So for example, if you're going to use the charms, there's a whole back end facilitators guide where you've got more quotes, you've got some questions. If you just want to sort of bring that with you, because I've been there, right? I've been a facilitator now for more than 35 years, and we all need a little bit of inspiration. So most of these are digital. The products are, of course, physical, but the back-end resources are digital, and you can just put them on your phone. People don't need to know what you're looking at, but you know that you've got it there with you. Mm-hmm. So with that, everyone, thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon here at the Coaching Money Podcast. Take care. Be well.